Today, brethren, the title of my sermonette is Why Ruth? American exceptionalism is frowned on by many in America today. This is a belief that America is an exception to the usual or average. Exceptional means surpassing that which is common or usual. Most of the founders believe this about America. Our Constitution and its idea of freedom, although not all people enjoyed freedom at that time. Today we have more equality and more freedom, but a growing number, unfortunately, of our young people and our politicians, especially those running for president, have nothing good to say about this nation. They can find nothing exceptional about this country. I've heard that some people in God's church have a problem with the truth that God is only calling some people at this time because that would make those people exceptional. They believe it is wrong to think God's people are exceptional. Well, those who are called, answered the call, and chose to follow Christ are the exception because they made that choice. Many are called, but few are chosen, because many are called, but few are chosen, because those that chose did answer the call. We aren't called because we were exceptional. We were called because we were the weak of the world. The story of Ruth is an example of a person who was excluded from God's fellowship because she was a Moabite. But God redeemed her, as He will, like He will all of us, every person who will follow Him. God made Ruth exceptional. Who were the Moabites? Deuteronomy 23:3. An Ammonite living in the land of Moab shall not enter the assembly of the Lord, even to the 10th generation. None of his descendants shall enter the assembly of the Lord forever, because they did not meet you with bread and water on the road when you came out of Egypt, and because they hired Balaam, the son of Beor, in Pethor of Mesopotamia to curse you. These are a people descended from Lot and his daughters, and one of his daughters, On their way to the promised land, Israel camped in the plains of Moab. The Moabites were fearful of them, so didn't send help, but instead hired Balaam to curse them. Yet, the story of one Moabite, Ruth, is in the Bible for an example. So let's turn to the book of Ruth. This is a story of two widows. Naomi, who had left Bethlehem during a famine for Moab with her husband and two sons. Naomi's husband had died there, and the two sons, who both married women of Moab, also died there. Neither son had children. When the famine was over, Naomi decided to go back to Bethlehem. Both daughters-in-laws were willing to go with her, but she insisted they return to their families, to their gods, and to find husbands. One of them did return home. The other, Ruth, chose to stay with Naomi. As we know, Ruth went to Naomi's home and became the wife of Boaz. Their son, Obed, was the father of Jesse, the grandfather of David, and so in lineage of Jesus Christ. Why did God choose the son of a Moabite to be in the lineage of Jesus Christ? Why Ruth? Let's read Ruth 1:16 through 17. But Ruth said, "Do not entreat me to leave you, to turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people. Your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May Jehovah do to me, and more so, if anything but death part you from me." The greatest, a lot of people say this is one of the greatest poetic treasures of all time, and one of the greatest covenants that you will find in the Bible. Ruth chose to stay with Naomi. However, that decision extended not only to Naomi, but her commitment to God and Naomi's people. It even extended beyond death itself. Note what she says. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will be buried. Even calling God's punishment on herself, if anything but death parted her from Naomi. May Jehovah do to me, and more so, if anything but death part you from me. Let's take a moment and not forget what an exceptional person Naomi must have been. Her faith in God led Ruth to the one and only true God, and to forsake the gods of Moab. Naomi was an example for us all. Even during her most sorrowful moments in life, she put the welfare of others before herself. Naomi's example brought Ruth into the Israelite community, foreshadowing a time when all people will be grafted into God's family. This is the story of two widows, returning with nothing but faith in God. The world throughout history hasn't been kind to widows. Today in many countries, widows can find themselves in very precarious situations. Some countries allow male relatives to forcibly marry a widow to claim her property, or the deceased husband's family will claim all of her possessions. God has much to say about the care and protection of widows. Naomi had hoped that her husband's family would obey the command in Deuteronomy 25 to care for the widow. But what did Ruth expect? Since she had married into an Israeli family, did she expect to be accepted in Bethlehem? Or was she thinking of the old story of animosity when Israel came into the Moabite lands? Whether or not she had concern about it being accepted, her loving concern for Naomi would not allow her to leave her. Ruth had grown to know Naomi's God, and her faith allowed her to choose and to go with a penniless widow to be her caregiver in the land of Naomi's people. Your God is my God, Ruth said. Like Abraham, Ruth forsake her people, their gods, and went into a new land. Unlike Abraham, she went with no money, no flocks. She trusted what God and Naomi's family would do for them. When they reached Bethlehem, Naomi told her friends she had come empty-handed. She had nothing. But the women had returned at a time of the spring holy days, a happy time, a time of fullness. Everyone is excited about the first barley harvest, getting ready for the holy day and the waving of sheaves. Although the two women had no fields to harvest, there were fields to glean for the poor, and Ruth wasn't too proud to depend on others. As a foreigner, Ruth probably wouldn't have had the same rights as an Israeli widow to go in the fields. But her devotion to Naomi must have spread pretty fast. The town accepted her, though she was a foreigner. When Boaz found out who she was, he told her to stay in the fields where she would be safe. Love at first sight. She bowed down to him and acknowledged his kindness to the foreigner she was. She followed Naomi's instructions by going to the threshing floor to lay at Boaz's feet. She went after dark, not to disturb him, to be seen by others, or embarrass him. None of this was forced on Ruth. She purposely put herself in a lowly position under Boaz's feet, leaving before light, protecting his reputation. She did as Naomi told her and asked Boaz to marry her. Boaz had grown to love her, and he praised her for not seeking a younger man. Ruth was under no obligation to marry Boaz. Naomi had a closer relative, and under the law, who to the law fell too. So Boaz went to that relative. Finding out he wouldn't take on another wife, Boaz was able to take on the responsibility for himself. Through marriage, Boaz became Ruth and Naomi's redeemer. Naomi regained ownership of her land. Ruth, a foreigner, an outcast, became a child of God. Not only was Ruth redeemed by Boaz, she was redeemed by the people of Bethlehem. They were witnesses to Boaz's redemption of her and blessed her by asking the Lord to make her like Rachel and Leah, the mothers of Israel. Ruth 14:11. God, through Boaz, redeemed Ruth, giving them a son, putting him in the bloodline of David and Jesus Christ. Why a Moabite woman? Why Ruth? Ruth's story is our story. It's a story, excuse me. It's the story of a sinner who followed false gods but turned to God and made her an exceptional woman. Ruth chose to follow God. He accepted and redeemed her, giving her a place in his family. When we were baptized, we committed to the service of the Father and the Son. Our commitment to God is similar to the commitment Ruth made with Naomi. Do not entreat me to leave you, to turn back from following you. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. May you do to me and more, if anything except death becomes between you and me. It is of no coincidence that Ruth's story takes place during the time of the spring harvest festivals. Ruth is a perfect example of why leavened is used as an offering at Pentecost. We are leavened. Taking it out of our houses for a week is easy, but taking it out of our lives and ourselves is a lifelong task. Her story foreshadows our own, turning from the world's false god to answer the calling of God. When Christ returns, he will glean his first fruits from an evil world, making his church his bride.